They're digging mass graves in Manaus, the city with the unhappy distinction of being the worst affected in Brazil, the new coronavirus hotspot. But instead of supporting those burying the dead, Brazil's president is burying his head in the sand, the leader of the Ostrich Alliance. When told that Brazil now has more cases than China, he shrugs and makes a joke about his second name, Messias, meaning the Messiah.
E daí? Lamento, quer que faça o quê? Eu sou Messias, mas não faço milagre.
So what? This is what.
Fora Bolsonaro.
People queuing for aid as the virus sweeps through the favelas and shanties.
Além de ser genocida total. Quando ele fala que e daí para mais de 5.000 mortes, ele mostra caráter psicopata, uma pessoa nada confiável.
Com a ajuda de equipamento improvisado pelos
médicos. A patient lies in a Manaus hospital on a respirator fashioned from a plastic bag. The dead lie in hospital corridors, while the president says coronavirus is just a sniffle and, mimicking his mentor, President Trump, champions potentially harmful drug therapies. His supporters continue to go to Copacabana Beach and parrot his line, even after he sacked his health minister for contradicting him.
A proporção das mortes em relação a hoje é mínima, né? É mínima em relação a todas as outras mortes e outras doenças que nós temos.
But every night, people bang pots and pans, calling for Bolsonaro to be impeached because of his behavior on COVID-19 and a corruption scandal. One of Brazil's indigenous leaders, Raoni Metuktire, has a message for the whole country. It's not just that the president doesn't care about native Brazilians, he says. Everyone should stay at home to avoid the virus. It's hard to bury your head in the ice. But that's metaphorically what the president of Belarus is doing. Although a teammate has contracted COVID-19, the president says he won't stop playing ice hockey.
Меня? Ну зачем? Можно, но зачем? Я не понимаю. Здесь нет вирусов никаких. Вот ты же не заметила, что они летают? И я тоже не вижу.
В опорной зоне.
The Belarusian Football League has gained a new global following online because it's one of the few still playing, even as the real number of coronavirus cases in Belarus remains unknown. A few local fans attend in person. Their president says vodka can cure COVID-19, and some are taking that literally.
Нет, конечно. Мы потому что проспиртованы. Так что мы не боимся вообще его.
Back in Brazil, Taina dos Santos is burying her mother, 56-year-old Ana Maria, a nursing assistant.
Eles estão lutando com as armas que eles têm. Está sendo muito complicado, muito mesmo.
The leaders of Brazil and Belarus see COVID-19 as a conspiracy by their enemies. So they disregard both science and the suffering of their people.
Well, I'm joined now from Washington, D.C. by the author in political science, Yascha Mounk, who specialises in the crisis of liberal democracy and the rise of populism. Denial is a slightly surprising response from a populist leader, isn't it?
Well, denial is not exactly surprising since we know that populist leaders tend to mistrust independent experts. They tend to mistrust anybody they don't have direct control over. But it's true that if somebody had asked me 3 or 4 months ago to come up with some kind of global crisis or event, which seems at least to legitimate the long-standing views of right-wing populists, I would have struggled to do better than the current coronavirus pandemic. It seems to validate the idea that the world is very dangerous, that globalization can harm us, that we need to close down borders in order to protect our citizens. And that does make it surprising that so many populist leaders have precisely in this moment completely failed to protect their populations against this deadly virus.
And who are the ones who've done well by it?
So there are some populist leaders, most of whom have been in power for a long time. They trust the institutions of our countries more because they've had the necessary time to place the loyalists, their allies, into decision-making powers across a whole range of societal institutions. And they have done relatively well at protecting the populations against the coronavirus, while also using this as an opportunity to completely monopolize power. So Viktor Orban in Hungary is probably the best example. His response to the virus has been relatively effective, but at the same time, he has indefinitely suspended parliament, taken on the power to rule by decree, threatened people with being thrown in jail if they spread quote-unquote false rumors on social media. So Hungary is now very clearly a dictatorship, and the coronavirus was the last nail in that metaphorical coffin.
But I suppose, though, there could be some populists. I mean, we don't know what will happen to Bolsonaro, for example. The population might turn on him if it turns out very badly in Brazil and he hasn't prepared his population. But I mean, as a broader sort of movement, I mean, it's hard to say that that what has been the effect of coronavirus on populism and authoritarian government.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a very clear direction of travel. And as you're saying, I think there's going to be a bifurcation. So I think that there are some people like Viktor Orban in Hungary who are using this as an opportunity to consolidate power, and they will probably be more firmly in the saddle after this virus is over. They have managed to destroy any real opportunity the opposition has to challenge them. But at the same time, I think that the mishandling of this crisis by people like Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil, or for that matter by Donald Trump in the United States, is going to provide a real problem to populists. For a long time, the critics of populists have been saying that in the long run, ordinary citizens will pay a very, very heavy price for leaders who don't listen to experts, who mistrust independent institutions, who politicize everything, who are incapable of being unifying leaders in a moment of danger. And that all seemed very abstract because, frankly, if you were a citizen of the United States or of Brazil 4 or 5 months ago, you would have said, you know, my life is not that much worse than it was 3 or 4 years ago, and that would have been true. I think now, as people are saying, the sorry failure of Donald Trump, of Jair Bolsonaro, and other populist leaders to protect them in a moment of need, that will help people understand how dangerous populists are to our core political values, but also to our lives.
Thank you very much indeed.